Good evening. Pause. This is Two-Way Tonight. Thank you for joining. I'm Mark Halperin in Brooklyn, USA, at the international headquarters of Two-Way. Thank you for joining. Special tonight, we'll talk for an hour. An extraordinary amount of news to go through. Donald Trump, not a surprise, opened up his bill signing, his EO signing event, and he talked about pretty much everything. Some news on the Doge front with Elon Musk's wings being clipped a bit because of the pressure from the cabinet and Congress, which we forecast this morning. And oh my goodness, Gavin Newsom made news. Ro Khanna made news. There's a lot of news, mostly Trump news. Cabinet folks made news. So we're going to break format a little bit. I'm going to bring in our guests. Hopefully they're both here. Lori, are our guests here? Well, when the guests are here, you'll bring them in.
Oh,
I'm going to bring in, bring in our guests, and I'm just going to run through the news with them because there's just so many clips I want to play. And then, well, as always, we'll get to your questions and comments if you'd like to be in the conversation and you're here in the Two-Way platform. And it's in your beating heart. You feel love, peace, and understanding, not necessarily in that order, and you are willing to extend the presumption of grace to all, then and only then, please raise your hand and be in the conversation. If you're watching on YouTube or X, don't raise your hand, but do comment if you wish, but please no smack in the chat. Then at 7 o'clock Eastern time, we switch gears. I put on a different necktie. Oh, I'm not wearing a necktie. Anyway, David Bahnsen will be here. David Bahnsen's the Bahnsen Group is the sponsor of this program. And David is one of the smartest people you'll ever talk to on the economy. So at 7 Eastern, different way, you'll not on this Zoom link or this channel, only on Two-Way, not on YouTube or X. You can join a conversation about tariffs. A lot of news on tariffs today. President Trump basically backed down with Mexico and Canada. I hate to say I told you so, but I did. And we'll talk about what happened today, as well as the basic economics of tariffs in this case, and more generally with David. If you want to be part of that special private conversation for Two-Way community members only, go to tway.tv/TBG, the Bahnsen Group, tway.tv/TBG. Many of you have already registered, but if you haven't yet and you want to be part of that conversation at 7, please sign up to be part of it. All right. Are our guests here yet? No? All right. I'm going to start without them, but when they get here, bring them in. All right. Let me just say.
Kristen's here.
Kristen's here. Bring Kristen in. Love to have Kristen in.
Kristen and Alex. Kristen and Alex are both there.
All right. Hey, Kristen.
I'll get him on.
How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
You know, your colleague, Jeff Rowe, I wanted him to be on, and he said he was on spring break.
Man.
Yeah. Thank you. Kristen, for those of you who don't know, and if you don't, you've never really seen our program because Kristen is a looming and frequent presence. Kristen is a Republican strategist, and Alex Eisenstadt was just on, but he's on again. Why? Fan favorite. And of course, Alex is plugging his book, not even out yet, and has already made worldwide news from the Daily Mail to the New York Post to Politico. Who else has picked up your planned scoops that you've given out as if they broke the story, Alex?
Well, we had Vanity Fair today.
Vanity Fair today, yeah. Where else?
CNN has done some.
CNN, Axios.
I
have to say, Alex and I have been talking about his book for some time, and I told him from the beginning, I said, Alex, I take it as a given your book is going to be great. This is when I do books, this is my philosophy. Book's going to be great. All that matters is always be selling. And the best way to sell is to figure out, reverse engineer, what are you going to promote? And Alex has done a masterclass, which I'm surprised has gotten almost no commentary, but here I am commenting on it. Alex has figured out, like, what's the good Daily Mail story? What's the good Vanity Fair story? And he's parceled them out like he's like Santa
Claus.
Not Santa Claus. I'm thinking of like what celebrity does this? Like you're J-Lo. You're the J-Lo of Trump books. Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power, is not even out yet. And Alex has gotten like 10 front page stories. Kudos to you and or who's ever doing your publicity. Buy the book now, even though it's not out yet. You can go on Amazon and get in the queue. Congratulations to you, sir. I will tell you not to jinx it, but publicity doesn't always equal sales. So keep going. Don't rest on your laurels.
No, right. Not resting at all.
All right. Congratulations on what you've
Thank
achieved
you.
so far. Again, raise your hand if you want to be in the conversation. So folks, and by folks, I mean Kristen and Alex, there's a ton. And I'm at a loss to know exactly which order to go. But let's start with Donald Trump in the Oval Office today during this bill signing, talking about Doge. Let's start with Doge. Let's start with number 5, Sam. This is Donald Trump saying he doesn't want to see good federal workers get axed.
Other thing I think most important for today, I want the cabinet members to keep good people. I don't want to see a big cut where a lot of good people are cut. I want the cabinet members to keep the good people, and the people that aren't doing a good job, that are unreliable, don't show up to work, etc., those people can be cut. So I had a meeting and I said, I want the cabinet members go first, keep all the people you want, everybody that you need. And it would be better if they were there for 2 years instead of 2 weeks, because in 2 years they'll know the people better. But I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious. That's very important. And we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them, and Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
So, as we reported this morning on the program, aka the morning meeting, pressure from cabinet secretaries unhappy with basically working for Musk after they were Senate confirmed and he wasn't, and pressure from Republicans in Congress. Tom Cole on the record with the Washington Post saying it's too much, cutting too much. Alex, have you ever heard the president speak so kindly about good federal workers as he did just now?
It was an interesting moment, especially when you consider that it was about this time last week when Trump had Elon Musk stand up before all his cabinet members in a cabinet meeting, and it really felt like Trump was very much empowering Musk. And for Trump to do this now today, which felt like he was clipping his wing, Trump was clipping Musk's wings a little bit. It was surprising. I thought it was pretty notable, to be honest.
Yeah. Kristen, your thoughts on this important day in the Trump-Musk relationship?
I don't think it changes. I think we can say, yes, this was a huge moment and change, but I think it's more of, as this goes along and trucks along, more people are added to the cabinet, the process keeps moving. I think it's just the natural adjustment and progression. And so we can all, the left will say, oh, Elon's doing this unilaterally, make him a villain. But ultimately, that's not his role. His role is to be a disruptor in this process to help things get done that, frankly, Republicans and Democrats have not been able to do for decades. And so, and I kind of go back to even before this, when Elon went to the House GOP conference. I thought that was really smart for him to go and listen to the members, listen to the people who are hearing from their own constituents that there are cuts that are hurting their everyday lives. And the response wasn't too bad, we're cutting anyway. It was, oh, that's really good to know. We're going to go back and adjust. And this is a tech businessman, and business and government do not run the same. This isn't Tesla, right? This isn't X. Elon's not sitting, sleeping in the basement of the Capitol trying to redo this. And so there's going to be some bumps in the road that just institutionally are there. And it's a little bit more complicated than just restarting a business. And so I think it's healthy, and I think it's a progression. And I think we'll see it again and again down the road as it happens. And what I thought was the most telling is how receptive and supportive Elon was in response, not just to the House Republican members who voiced their concerns, but also to the president and what he said today. Elon is the happy warrior that is here to make change and is going along with whatever, the direction that the president puts him in.
Elon kind of gets the joke, right? People sometimes look at him as maybe a little nutty, a little weird, but he gets the joke, which is to adjust. All right. On tariffs, put up number 10, Sam. All right, let's do the game show portion. Pretend you got a buzzer in front of you like you're on Jeopardy, and buzz when you know the answer. Ready? What is the name of the most famous roller coaster in Coney Island in Brooklyn? What is the name of the most famous roller coaster? People. Nobody knows?
The Cyclone.
The Cyclone. You didn't buzz, so it doesn't count. But yes, the Cyclone. Today was a roller coaster. That's my transition because I'm in Brooklyn. Today was a roller coaster on the tariffs, right? First, the president said they're happening. Then he said they're off on Mexico, but still on Canada. And then he reversed most, but not all of the new tariffs on Mexico and Canada, suspended them. And here's what Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, here in New York today, the New York Economic Club, talking about Trump and tariffs. Please play number 9.
As President Trump has said many times, tariff is his favorite word. I would say that reciprocal is probably his second favorite word. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to be open to the idea, if you want to be a numbskull like Justin Trudeau and say, oh, we're going to do this, then tariffs are going to go up. But if you want to sit back, have a discussion with the Commerce Department, USTR, they all have my phone number too. I am happy to have a discussion with our foreign counterparts that says that here's what we think you were doing. And the tariffs are the actual easy part. Because we know India does this on U.S. motorcycles. Germany does this or EU does this on American cars. That's a quantitative number. But also, what are non-tariff barriers? Apple cannot sell the new iPhone 16 because of local content laws in Indonesia. Are you manipulating your currency? Are you suppressing the value of that? Are you unfairly subsidizing select industries, either via bank lending or suppressing labor markets?
I stayed with it a little longer than I might have because I want to get your impressions of two things simultaneously. Kristen, you first. One is, does any of this tariff back and forth matter in terms of the public, or no one in the public would be paying attention? And what do you think of Scott Bessent as a spokesperson on the economy?
Well, I'll take the latter first. I think he's very smart. And to the people who are, I don't believe that the average American is watching back and forth on tariffs. The average American is going to know, whether the economy is getting better, whether the prices of what they're buying every day, the people in, the car factory workers in Michigan, if they get better jobs. I mean, that's what they're focused on. For the people that do focus on the intricate details of tariffs and stock markets and who are watching CNBC all day, I think Scott Bessent is a trusted voice for them. He's obviously a well-respected subject matter expert. And so when he talks about tariffs and the process, I think he brings a level of confidence that people who are watching this minute by minute to see, that may be either concerned or confused at the different moves being made, he brings a confident voice to that. But I think the average American, at the end of the day, tariffs, it's a very complex thing to understand. It makes me wish that I majored in economics and not politics every day. But they're going to normal people want to know how this affects them. Everything that's happening right now, they will feel it every day when they go shopping and what they do.
Alex, you got Uber Eats at the door? Is that where you're looking over there?
No, I was going to do that later.
Okay. Alex, in normal presidency, this kind of flip-flopping on, no president would do this, but Donald Trump doesn't care. Same two questions to you. Is there any meaning or negative cost to all this flip-flopping on tariffs? And how do you appraise a month or so in Scott Bessent as a spokesperson for the administration on the economy?
It does feel like there have been some real flashbacks to the early days of the Trump 1 administration, where it does feel like there's some chaos setting in terms of the daily changes, the seeming knee-jerk reaction to whatever the stock market is doing. It does feel like you're starting to feel a bit more chaos seeping through over the last couple of days. As far as Bessent, he's absolutely a good spokesman. He's someone who Trump definitely trusts to go out there and appear on TV and to talk about the stock market. But it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because Trump has come out in such strong favor of tariffs. And then when he backs down like this, what does that do? Does it continue to create more and more uncertainty for the stock market going forward?
All right. Again, if you want to be on the conversation, please raise your hand. There's so much to get to. I'm going to have to cool down here. I want to play it. Sam, this is going to be number 3. lots of anger on the right and confusion amongst people, maybe in the center, maybe some Democrats also, at Nicole Wallace's comments after the State of the Union, like speech regarding DJ and the little boy who was made part of the Secret Service and hugged the head of the service. And she basically said, well, great if he wants to be a cop, but hopefully he's not a cop who commits suicide. As far as I know, when I last checked, she hasn't commented on what she said. NBC, MSNBC haven't commented. No one will be surprised that Donald Trump is very familiar with what Nicole Wallace said. And here he is talking about her in that Oval Office bill, executive order signing ceremony number 3, please.
CNN is MSDNC, which is the worst. And the good news is very few people watch them anymore. They have lost such credibility. And frankly, what Nicole Wallace said, I've never been a fan of hers, and she's not very talented. But I'll tell you, what she said the other day about that young man is disgraceful. She should be forced to resign. And Rachel Maddow should be forced to resign. Nobody watches her anyway. I don't know if it's not possible they pay her as much money as I hear. But certainly she's lost all credibility, both of them. But what they said the other day, they should be forced to resign about that young person who is suffering great.
All right, Alex, do you refuse to play my game with the fake buzzers, or are you willing to play? Here's another question.
I'll play.
$25 on the line.
Okay.
What is Nicole Wallace's maiden name? Nicole Wallace's maiden name.
I don't know.
Stop Googling, Kristen.
I used to know it, and I can't remember it.
All right. It's Nicole Devonish. We were looking for Devonish.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do either of you want to comment on what the president said about Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow? Please do if you do.
I think he was too nice. He was too nice. I mean, she's a professional, but she's a human being. I mean, what she said was just totally out of line. And she's a comms person, so she knows what she says. She's done this as a career to frame a message. She knows what she was saying. But even then, people make mistakes and they step on what they're saying. Go out and apologize. The fact that she hasn't done that and hasn't recognized how heartless and cruel her words were really is a testament that Trump has really broken her. I mean, I was shocked. It was upsetting to me as someone who does politics for a living to see someone else who has worked on the same side be so callous. There was just no excuse for it.
Kristen, before Alex comments, let's say Nicole called you and said, I heard you on two-way, because like everyone else, I watched two-way tonight, and I want to set this right. What kind of statement do you think would be appropriate?
It could be, I think, short. Less is more. She's already said a lot. To come out and just say, let my emotions get the better of me. It was an inappropriate statement. My heart goes out to DJ and his family. It was a heartwarming moment. I apologize for not articulating that. I mean, it could be even just, I'm sorry. Really, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yeah. Alex, do you comment either on what he said just then, or your sense of the current state of the president and his White House's relationship to the media writ large?
Well, I'll say this, which is that this White House press shop, it's not, and it's a joint digital shop. It's not like a traditional White House press shop. They are extremely attuned to whatever anyone says in the mainstream media, and they pay particular attention to what happens on cable networks and networks they deem to be left of center. And they're very adept at grabbing those videos, putting them on Twitter, and blowing them up and really highlighting them. It really feels like a campaign war room more than the traditional White House. Definitely much more than the first Trump White House, definitely more than the Biden White House. It feels like a 24/7 campaign.
And you get official White House statements and tweets that are like most war rooms wouldn't put out because they're so over the top.
Yeah, I believe it's called the 47 Rapid Response Twitter account.
Yeah.
It is 24/7 campaign style stuff. And so this is an example of the kind of thing that the White House is really good at highlighting.
Yeah, it revs up the base, it puts the liberal media on the defensive, and it allows the president to feel wonderful because he loves doing it. So it's a very powerful thing for them. All right. I like to pretend sometimes this is a regular program. So I'm going to do what we call in the business a reset. Our guest tonight, Republican strategist Christian Davidson, Axios writer Alex Eisenstadt. His new book, Revenge, the Inside Story of Trump's Return to Power, is available soon or now if you want to pre-order. And coming up here on Two-Way at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be sitting down with David Bahnsen of the Bahnsen Group talking about tariffs. And if you want in on that conversation, you must register at tway.tv/TBG, the Bahnsen Group. Back to the program after this short message from Pepsi. No. Fooled you there for just a second. Our sponsor's not Pepsi. It's, in fact, the Bahnsen Group. All right. A couple things on Democrats, and then we're going to go to everybody's questions. Programming note just in. Congressman Ro Khanna will be on the program tomorrow, but not this program. He'll be on the morning meeting. Why? Because of something he tweeted earlier today. Please put up number 17. So Ro Khanna, by his own account, stood during some of the moments in the State of the Union-like speech when no other Democrat seems to have stood, or very few other Democrats. And so he tweeted this today. Jim Barrett, a flight attendant, politely chased me down at Chicago Airport. I think it's called O'Hare or Midway, but that's all right. Sir, I'm a Democrat, but the way the party behaved was embarrassing, made us look heartless. I don't care who is up there. You stand for the boy with cancer. Be more rational and get your act together. Do you guys have the second tweet or just that one? I'll read the second tweet. I don't know if we have the graphic. The second tweet is, he said, I replied that a few of us did stand and clap, and we must be the party that still believes in kindness, decency, and trying to bring people together. So Ro Khanna couldn't join us tonight, but he'll join the morning meeting tomorrow at 9:15 Eastern. Come for that. It's all promos tonight and reintroducing the guests. It's a little tedious. Alex, do you attach to me? I'll tip my hand. Like, that's not a normal thing most Democrats would do. He basically said, somebody came up to me and said the party needs to shape up, and he agreed. What do you think of the two tweets from Congressman Khanna?
Yeah, there's just so much uncertainty right now within the Democratic ranks about how to approach Trump. And we are, 3 months post-election, and they just don't know how to approach Trump. And you compare it to where we were 8 years ago, and it felt like after Hillary Clinton's loss, Democrats, they kind of knew what direction they wanted to go in. But it doesn't feel now the same way. It feels like they very much are directionless, and that includes in terms of how to handle the theatrics during Trump's speech. They were all over the map on that. And you've seen a lot of disagreement within the party in the days after that. And so it's just another example of how the Democrats are still trying to figure out what direction they want to take here.
Yeah. Kristen, what do you think of what Congressman Khanna did, and how distinctive is it compared to what most of the party's attitude is?
Well, I think if more Democrats take that approach, then I think Republicans need to take mind and start to be worried that they're starting to get their act together. It's shocking to me how it is news that someone would tweet that. It's shocking to me that it's even an issue. And frankly, if I were Senator Alyssa Slotkin, I would be really upset, because I thought for a response, which is very difficult.
Best ever.
Yeah. And I thought she did fine. And her, talking with people, and they were saying, well, no one's really going to watch that response. She was talking to Democrats. If Democrats would listen to what she was saying, and, that would be the message to take away, I would be upset if I were her, because no one's talking about that. No one internally in the party is saying, should we be, echoing what she said? They're talking about the fact that they couldn't stand and clap for a 13-year-old boy dying of cancer. I mean, when you get to that point, get yourself in a room, stop worrying about, your DEI metrics and whether you're patriotic enough. Just the bar is really low here. So I think good on the congressman for saying that. If more Democrats start to catch on to that, Republicans should, keep in mind, because it means they're starting to get it together. But as of now, I'm just shocked that more haven't.
Couldn't agree more. All right. Gavin Newsom did three things today. I believe three things. Maybe two. I keep telling conservatives, I don't know that he's going to run in 28, but he's not as dumb as you think. He's not as liberal as you think, and he's better with people than you think. I'll keep telling you that, because you guys are underestimating him, even though, again, I'm not sure he's going to run. Today, he had Charlie Kirk on the maiden episode of his podcast. Most Democrats would not know how to call Charlie Kirk or not try to get him on their platform. And he did. And here's a little bit of that. Number 19, please.
Now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
Right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate,
But like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that.
Whoa. Okay. For the governor of the People's Republic of California, that's a pretty big deal. Now, we've been trying to figure out how different that is from what he said previously. I said he did 3 things. Let's just do 2 things. He had Charlie Kirk on his podcast, and he took a position on trans athletes in women's sports that seems to be to the right of many in the party. Kristen, what do you think of those 2 things?
Well, I'll be the first to say that, I think I was on this program a few weeks ago saying that Gavin Newsom's presidential aspirations were dead on arrival, the wildfires that he handled that were done. And watching this today, I had to take a step back and say, whoa, okay, maybe he's going to figure it out. People aren't even thinking about that anymore. The one thing that I think was very smart for him to go on Charlie Kirk, we'll see, or have him on and see how many more crossover media he does. It's like he realized that he's no longer running for governor of California, but president of the United States. And so he's tweaking that a little bit. His big issue is that his words don't align with his actions. And so even though he did go a little bit to the right on that issue, if you look at his record in California, it does not match that. And it's a very new awakening. And if I were advising Gavin Newsom, I would say, go and take a look at all the extreme things you've done in California, including that, and start mea culpaing some of that now. I mean, start walking some of it, not when you're going to Iowa or South Carolina for the first time. Go and start fixing some of that now. You have time, go do it. But I was surprised, very surprised. And I'm saying here now that I was wrong before. And I think he is someone to keep an eye on.
All right, Alex, besides the fact that they shared that set to record the video podcast, what is something that Gavin Newsom and Charlie Kirk have in common?
A fondness for media attention.
Well, yes, but they're both fans of two-way. They're both regular watchers of two-way, by the way, which is part of why we're so proud of the platform, because I don't know too many things they're both fans of, but in terms of media, but they both like two-way. What do you think of that exchange that he had with his guest, Charlie?
I thought it's an interesting. First of all, I thought it was interesting that Newsom decided to do this podcast even before the show popped last night. It was within the top 30, top 25 on the Spotify charts. Yeah. So I thought that the fact that Newsom went ahead and did this podcast, I thought it was a pretty savvy move. It got him a lot of attention, and for him to put Kirk on his first podcast, I think it was also a savvy move. It also got him a fair amount of attention.
Yeah.
It was surprising to see Newsom do this though, because he's always been always cast himself as a trailblazer on LGBTQ related issues. When he was mayor of San Francisco, he legalized gay marriage. And
not just to cast himself. He came out for same-sex marriage before Nancy Pelosi, before the Clintons, before Barack Obama. So not just cast himself, but he walked the walk on that.
Yeah, and that was during the 2004 campaign, and he really got crosswise with the National Democratic Party and John Kerry, and they were the Democratic Party at that point was trying to distance itself from the notion of gay marriage. So I thought it was really surprising that he did this today.
I'll say this: when Gavin Newsom announced he was doing a new podcast, I didn't love, from a theatrical point of view, I didn't love his video announcing it. He took a lot of heat from people who said, "You're still governor. Why are you doing this? You should be focused on your job." And today we're giving him credit for kind of the optics of having Charlie Kirk on. I will say, I think that conversation, almost regardless of what they ended up talking about, I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, except for that clip. I think it's great. I think it's people can say it's a gimmick. They can say it's his shameless appeal to some new audience. But I think it's great that those two guys would sit down and have a conversation. They're both very reasonable guys. They're both brilliant. Again, I'll tell you, don't think Gavin Newsom's dumb. He's brilliant. They're both brilliant. They're both super interested in technology and democratization. Gavin wrote a book about it. Charlie lives it every day. It's fantastic. It's fantastic that they sat down. And I look forward to seeing who else he has on. And if I end up having an extra hour in the next 5 days, I'll listen to the whole thing. All right. One last thing about the Democrats. We just did 2 things for the Democrats that we think were pretty good. I think we all agree. Ro Khanna tweet, good. Gavin Newsom sitting down with Charlie Kirk, good. Here is a video that is so being questioned, I'll say, that Brit Hume, when he tweeted the video, tweeted and said, "Is this really real? Is this like AI?" Here is some Democratic female Democratic members of Congress doing something. This is number 16. You know me, I'm not judgmental. I try to just let things happen. Kristen, if you had been shown that before it aired and you were inclined to help those ladies out, what would you have said they should do with that video?
I would have deleted it and make sure that none of them had it on their phones ever again. And we didn't do that again. I mean, I always go back to 2016 when Hillary Clinton, they did the whole fight song mashup. I mean, I don't think I've laughed so hard. I mean, I still watch it now just to laugh.
Let me ask you a question about the video we just watched. And had you guys seen it before? Had you guys already seen it?
I saw it on social media, but I don't know what it is. Is it like a TikTok thing? Like
I think so.
It was a TikTok thing like 3 years ago.
Kristen, I know this may seem obvious to some, but what's wrong with that video? Why do we all react so negatively to it?
It's not authentic. It's a bunch of, I mean, and it's not really topical right now. And it's, I think they could have found other ways. They're putting these congresswomen in positions where, they look a little awkward, a little uncomfortable. They're trying to be cool. It's, trying to make it happen. And it's not really like a universal thing. I think that's from X-Men or something. I don't know. I don't do video games. I don't know what it is, but it's not universal. And so people are looking at that and saying, you're trying too hard. You're a try hard.
Yeah.
Staged.
It's too staged. It's like that other video where they all made the same video about Trump. It's like too stagey. Alex, Alex, would you have deleted that if you were them?
Well, I was surprised when I saw it because I didn't really quite know what it was. I thought the audio and video were quite poor. But this may actually be a better question for Kristen, because as a reporter, when I see something like that come out, I would look at the operatives or the staff members who work for them, and I would say, how did they all agree that this was a good idea?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get that many people to agree on one thing. And so you think that there would be staff members or operatives working for these people who would say, let's not do this.
Right.
And that's
you would think that. All right. Now,
they're sitting in a conference room in DC. They haven't been back to like their home states or real world in a long time. And they're just saying, this is really great. This is awesome. Our bosses are so cool. And it's just so, again, inauthentic. It's just didn't work.
I can't believe no one used the word cringe, which is really the right word. All right. Noah, did I cover everything we need to cover? I think I did.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job. There's a lot.
All right.
You did
Thank you for that. All right. Now it is time for your questions. Again, remember at the top of the hour, 7 Eastern time on another YouTube two-way channel. You can join me and David Bonson talk about tariffs. All right. Mr. Charles King. Charles, name 3 famous Americans with the last name King after you unmute. 3 famous Americans with the last name King. You got to unmute first, unless you're stalling. There you go. Who can you name famous Americans with the last name King?
There's Martin Luther.
Martin Luther King. Good.
Angus, the senator.
Angus King, senator.
And then how about
New York Nick Great, Bernard King?
There you go. That's another one.
All right, good. Where are you calling from tonight, sir?
So I'm in Chicago area.
Yeah.
Suburbs.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind for our extravagantly talented guest, Alex Eisenstadt?
Yeah. So I guess I have a question and then maybe a comment about Nicole Wallace.
Sir.
Is that the name?
That is her name. Maiden name Devonish, as Kristen will now remember.
I'll try and remember that.
Okay, good.
So question is about Scott Bessent and his relationship with the Commerce Secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of watching events as I do, it strikes me that the Commerce Secretary seems to be kind of a little more front and center. I don't know if that's just because of the media I happen to consume, or not.
So that
seems really unusual to me, and I'm wondering if that's unusual to you guys, and what that means, if anything.
Right. So I'll give you a brief history here, okay? Bessent was a big supporter of Trump and really wanted to be Treasury Secretary and worked on it for a long time. I believe he raised the second most money for him, and he's extremely qualified for the job. Lutnick wanted the job too and was ahead of the transition and tried to pull a Dick Cheney and make himself Treasury Secretary. And that was blocked, not just by Scott Bessent, but by others who don't think Lutnick plays nicely with others and thought it was bad, not good, not cricket for him to give himself the job. Lutnick took Commerce reluctantly, but was given the tariff portfolio, which in this administration everybody knew would be a big thing. So part of why you're seeing him out there is he loves being in the media. He loves it. So he makes a lot of time for it. Partly is because he's the tariff czar, and partly because he's from New York. So he's very well connected in the media. A lot of people in the media know him. It's going to be interesting to see as we go forward here, because Bessent's doing a fair amount of press too, whether those two will play nicely with each other and who Trump will think is better on TV. I don't think Lutnick's ever been in government before, and Bessent definitely hasn't. And I find Lutnick's on-air presence to be very Trumpian. He's kind of got the affect to Donald Trump. And so I'm sure Trump likes that. But I know also he thinks Scott Bessent's super smart and good on TV too. So in the world of Donald Trump, where performance on television and casting is so important, keep your eye on, who gets on the better shows, who Trump seems to favor. But right now, there's plenty of work to do. And Bessent, even though Bessent's involved in tariffs, he has a place in that lane, but he's got a lot of other lanes he's in as well. Alex, thoughts?
Well, I thought it was so the first time I realized that Lutnick really wanted to become sort of an outsized media figure was during the Madison Square Garden rally in late October, when Lutnick went up on stage and he was right next to Elon Musk, and he was, sort of guttural yells, sort of bombastic. And it was interesting because this was the final 10 days of the campaign. And here was a guy who was putting himself out there front and center. Howard Lutnick's not exactly a guy who is going to swing voters in, Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Michigan. But the fact that he was out there showed that he really was determined to become a player, a media figure, in a big way.
Yeah. Kristen, you want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, I agree with what Alex said. And I do think if it's not just these two in the cabinet overall, look back at Secretary of State Marco Rubio right after the, Oval Office meeting with, on Ukraine. His interview went viral. Everyone I know was sending it and tweeting out what a great job he did. And so everyone in the cabinet really, I think, has a gift to be a perfect spokesperson for their agency, for their cause. Brooke Rollins out there, Secretary of Ag, Brooke Rollins, talking about what they're doing to help the price of eggs. I think the president was very smart and focused on who he picked in these roles to be, spokesman. So I think both, while Lutnick definitely has a certain flair, Bessent has a gift as well. It's for a different audience. And so I think they're both, complement each other very well.
Excellent. I like what both of you said quite a bit. Thank you for that. Charles, follow up? Or are you all good?
Yeah, I'm wondering if is there any indicator that Bessent is not that influential, and that Lutnick, even from his seat in Commerce, is somehow
Bessent is super influential. He's super influential. Part of the advantage a Treasury Secretary has is it's across the street from the White House, and so being with Trump is super important. Trump is who's in front of me kind of guy. So part of how Bessent got the job of Treasury Secretary was he camped out at Mar-a-Lago for almost the entire transition. And as soon as he left, people were like, you got to get back here because Bessent's here, because Lutnick's there the whole time because he's doing the transition. And I believe he's learned that lesson. And so he's at the White House quite a bit. He crosses over through the East Wing to the West Wing to get more face time with the president. Lutnick's there a lot too. And you've seen him in photo ops. You've seen the president recognize him. He's got a longer relationship with the president, which matters to Donald Trump, but he likes Bessent a lot. So they're both super influential. But I predict, well, I shouldn't say I predict. It's possible that like in a great wrestling match, only one man can leave alive. We'll see if that does happen. Mr. King, thank you for joining. Don't forget, the fourth king is Bernard King's younger brother, Albert King. Great star at the University of Maryland and a decent NBA player, but
Thanks.
not that good.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. If I were named king, frankly, I would know all the famous kings. Maybe that's just me. All right, Jordan, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell people who don't know where you are and what's on your mind and what's for dinner.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I'm running my own little cooking show here.
That's good. We're thinking of doing a cooking show in two-way.
Yeah,
We haven't cast a host yet. Haven't cast a host yet. So show us your sauce. Show us your saucepan. Where are you, Jordan?
I'm calling from Massachusetts. I'm in Lexington.
Lexington.
Yeah,
That's near Concord, isn't it?
that's right. The shots rang out.
Yeah. Well, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell us what's on your mind.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask about Social Security with respect to Doge. So I know that, it's been kind of taken for granted that you can't ever say like we're going to make cuts in Social Security. Democrats hate it, Republicans hate it. I do think though that like the Republicans these days, and Trump especially, has an eye for issues that the general knowledge basically says you can't touch these, but when he goes for them, he's able to change public opinion. Think about immigration in 2012. When the Republicans lost, they said, oh, it's got to be pathway to citizenship, right? And then Trump comes in with a sledgehammer and says, no, we're actually going the exact opposite way. I think there are a lot of people who are, baby boomers who are, very protective of Social Security. But I feel like my generation, we kind of look at Social Security as like we're basically paying for our parents and our kids are going to pay for us. And we kind of, many of us are very responsible with our money and we save for retirement. And so I am wondering if maybe not in a Trump administration with, Elon Musk right now because of how radioactive it could be, but if down the line, maybe with like a J.D. Vance presidency, could we ever revisit Social Security and maybe decide that, 65 is a little bit too young for the times that we live in now? Maybe it is important to have a safety net and make sure that the people who are most vulnerable are able to survive in their old age, but maybe we can change how we do things.
Jordan, fabulously well framed. Kristen.
Well, I overall agree with what you're saying. It needs to be prioritized. So that fight, should it come, whether it's now or 4 years from now or whenever, what do you get done before that? Because that will take up so much oxygen and political capital to get done. I mean, everyone acknowledges that it's broken. It's going to go insolvent. I think people in my generation just assume we're not going to get any of it. It's just, that's how we live and we prepare for it. I think, President George W. Bush, he said it was his biggest regret not getting reform done back in 2005. So it's obviously been something that we know is a problem. We continue to punt it. No one wants to talk about it. And it would be amazing to go and reform it. That said, the battles, the political capital, the amount, all focus, all oxygen will go there. I wouldn't recommend touching it until you get everything else you want to get done finished first. So the immigration, education, Doge, everything, get all that done and have that kind of maybe at the end, because if you do it now, it's going to potentially harm other things that you could have easily gotten done had you not spent capital on that first.
Yeah. And before Alex weighs in, I'll just say, obviously the hitch in what you just suggested, Kristen, is by the time you got to that point in your administration, the chance that you still had the political capital and the relations with the other party to get it done are de minimis. Alex.
Yeah, the thing about entitlement reform is it feels like, you go back, I think Paul Ryan tried to do something similar back, was 2011, 2012. And then Republicans paid a price for it in some special election. And then George W. Bush tried it in 2005, as Kristen just referenced. It just feels like anytime anyone touches that stove, they get burned. And so how do you push the ball forward on that when there's so much political fear of doing it?
Yeah. Jordan, at the risk of burning up much of the remaining program, let me say this. Kristen's old colleague, Karl Rove, worked with President Bush and tried very hard to figure out how do you do immigration reform that's comprehensive and bipartisan and Social Security reform, not to destroy the program or to take benefits away from anyone, but to make the program solvent long-term. And Karl is a genius and really studied how do you build a coalition? How do you reach out to the other party? Because you can't do either of those things. It's not bipartisan. And they failed and they ate up a ton of time. And that experience really burned a lot of Republicans away from wanting to do it. There's very few honest Democrats who don't want to demagogue the issue. And they ironically get away with it for the media by saying, don't you dare cut our Social Security, because doing nothing is consigning the program to oblivion. So if they really were serious about Social Security, they'd be interested in working with the Republicans to come up with a way to fund it. Now, there's one category: raise retirement age, tax the benefits of the wealthy, maybe take away some of the benefits in part or in whole from the wealthiest Americans who don't need it. Change the way the cost of living adjustment is made. There's things you could do in 20 minutes to make the program somewhat solvent. Republicans are also interested in figuring out a way to use the power of compound interest and investing to change the program to allow the money to be invested rather than to just sit in a government bank account. Okay. So that process, Republicans made a mistake for years. They called it privatized Social Security. That was a mistake. The Bush people, I believe, came up with the phrase personal savings accounts. That sounds less bad, but the Democrats have demagogued this. Bill Cassidy, senator from Louisiana, had a very thoughtful plan to figure out how to do personal savings accounts, how to invest the money in a way that would be as palatable as possible to Democrats who weren't just interested in demagoguing it. The problem, as Kristen said, if you do it first, you run the risk of destroying your entire administration. If you do it later, as I said, the chances you have the political capital and the relationships with the other party are just not that great. I still believe that Donald Trump might do this in the last few years of his term. Most people think I'm nuts. And I've said this before. Donald Trump's attitude about the presidency is, I'm not going to be a sucker. I am going to do at least as much as my predecessors did. So if LBJ got rich as president doing business deals, I'm going to get richer. If JFK used the Justice Department and the FBI to do his political bidding, I'm going to do at least as much as he did. And his attitude is, I'm not going to be the sucker who does deficit reduction. I'm not going to be the sucker who risks doing Social Security reform. But if he can figure out a way to do it in a bipartisan way, which right now seems impossible, because I don't know if he can get a bipartisan vote on renaming a post office after Gandhi, then I think he might try it because he wants to go down in history as a great president. And the reality is, you could do this without taking benefits away. And this is something, again, that Republicans learned to say and believe in. No impact on current beneficiaries or those approaching retirement. Now, how far back do you go? Do you got anyone who's 50, anyone who's 40? But you can save the program with actuarial changes and not make any changes to current retirees or people close to being beneficiaries. And that's what the country should do. And it is an indictment on the political system and the voters, because the voters should demand this. The voters who care about Social Security should stop allowing Democrats to demagogue it. And they should demand that, say, fix it. Fix it for my kids and grandkids. Fix it for me, because now's the time to fix it. Because every year you don't fix it, the table becomes harder. The number of changes you need to make that do affect benefits becomes larger. So I find the whole thing outrageous and ridiculous. It's very difficult to see any president taking it on without, it's got to be bipartisan, and they have to have a way to talk about it. George Bush and Karl Rove tried really hard to come out with a way to talk about it, and it never really got serious that they could pass it. Didn't even get as close as comprehensive immigration reform. Jordan, thank you for joining. Jordan, who are the three most famous Ziskins in America? No, just kidding. Ziskin. It's not as common as King. Thank you for joining. All right. As they say in talk radio, back to the phones. Back to the phones. Leslie Miller, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what is on your mind with that ceiling fan blowing up a storm.
I'm in Australia, but I'm an American.
Yeah.
And,
are you there on holiday, or that's where you live?
I live here, but I'm back and forth. My daughter's at university in Texas.
Yeah.
And we're originally from Texas. So
all right. Well, welcome in. Tell us what's on your mind, mate.
Thank you. I was just the video that you showed of the women dancing, the congresswomen dancing, that just brought to mind a real difference in the parties. I don't see really anybody putting some words around this, where you're seeing the Trump administration, like him or not, like how he acts or not, he seems to be the same person in private as he is in public. And, you know, one thing that really was, I remember reading about like George Bush. I like the Bush family. I'm from Texas. We liked him as governor. But like you saw, one thing that stood out to me was like when he was talking to his cabinet members, he used language that like, you know, you just don't use in the South, you know, like, or, you know, so, you know, you just saw that you're like, oh, there's this private persona and then there's this public persona. Whereas, and you just see kind of that MAGA sort of set value what I would say is authenticity. And I guess that does come up, but being the same person throughout.
Yep.
And then with the Democratic, with the progressive side, you know, it looks like, you know, you're being presented two ways of going. With media, how are we going to react? Because you can't really hide anything. And one thing that Trump said when he's like, no one will cheer tonight for me.
Yeah.
What was interesting about that is like he was right.
Yeah.
And
Leslie, super well framed. Let's let Kristen and then Alex respond. But again, I think that's super well framed.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Again, the word that I kind of hang on to everything you just said was the authenticness. And so, you know, I'll kind of give Democrats say when they do something okay. I think it was the Congresswoman from Texas, Jasmine Crockett. Is that her name? I might have it wrong, but she did her own video, and it was to a Kendrick Lamar song. I don't know who I don't know the music, but it's like authentic to her. Like you could see her listening to that song on her iPad, and she's, you know, kind of using it to make a point. That wasn't as cringe as this, and I do think, you know, that's why even going back to 2016 or 2011 at CPAC when the president was there, the authenticity of Trump and, you know, the entire Make America Great Again, everything you see online, like that is what people are drawn to. And now I think, I mean, it's always been that way in politics, really. Now, where Republicans could get ourselves in trouble is, you know, there's only one Donald Trump, and we will never, I mean, he is a once in a lifetime political force. And so we have to be mindful that we can't just copy and paste and try to be him. You need to speak MAGA in your own language. Yeah. And it'll be important for us moving forward so that we don't have cringe videos coming out, you know, 10 years from now.
Alex.
Well,
Good, Alex.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
There you go. Alex, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to say that I definitely think Republicans have the stranglehold on authenticity right now. And I think Democrats are still trying to figure out, you know, when they don't, it's hard to be authentic when you don't know who you are or what you're trying to be. And I think Democrats are still trying to figure that out.
Leslie, who are the three most famous Millers in American history?
Oh, no, don't ask. I can't. I'm terrible at this kind of stuff on the fly, but Arthur Miller is the playwright.
Arthur Miller, Glenn Miller, and Reggie Miller are the correct answers, I think. Leslie, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming in. Alejandra, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for our outstanding guests, Christian Davidson and Alex Eisenstadt.
Hi, y'all. Thanks for having me on. I am in Florida. One thing I wanted to touch on, you know, the Democrats did really bad on Tuesday night when Trump literally called, I believe, Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas during the speech, and that barely has gotten any attention. Yeah. And then one thing about the TikTok, it's actually from Super Smash Bros. Is the reference they were trying to get there. Super Smash Bros.
Super Smash Bros. Okay.
But what was actually, what was actually on my mind today was I was thinking about how back in 2021, 2022, the whole rage that Wall Street was making money off of was SPACs. And even at that time, former president had his own deal, launching his media company, or merging his media company with a SPAC. And now it seems that kind of thing has died off and we've moved on to meme coins. So it as this whole thing evolves, this whole dynamic evolves with just people making money, it seems, out of thin air with these type of concepts. How hard is it going to be to keep politics and government politicians away from these kind of ventures so that the public can still trust government and just not seeing that everything is being double dipped.
Yep. Super great question, Alex.
I don't have a great answer to that, but it is becoming a bigger thing where you have connections between crypto and politicians, and it's a good question.
Yeah. Kristen.
Yeah, I would say I don't know if I agree that it's becoming a bigger problem. I think we're becoming more aware to it. So I don't believe that politicians monetizing, politics or policy is anything new. I think that's probably been that way forever. I mean, even go back to President Obama, I believe we were still paying royalties to him for the use of Obamacare, right? The use of his name in that policy name. So I don't know necessarily if it's the fact that it's exploding. It's just now it's more transparent and we see it. And because everyone is connected now on great platforms like Two-Way and X and Twitter and all this stuff, we just see it and it's more in your face. So I guess I don't really know the answer to whether we can stop it, but I would probably take question as to whether it's really exploding that much more or we're just more aware to it.
Yeah. It is the case that our richest president is also the one who's used the most devices and the most novel devices to try to get even richer. And the irony, of course, of his doing that in an age of transparency, and when he claims to be running for draining the swamp and say the highest ethical standards, et cetera, he has set a new standard. Kristen's right; it's not new. As I said, LBJ got rich in office. Harry Reid, as a senator, got rich in office. The public has to demand it. This is one where the politicians will get away with it until the public says no. Double dipping, taking advantage of the office is just not right. But unfortunately, not everybody in the public is as aggressive as they might be in demanding that they not do it and exploit the office. Alejandra, thank you for coming in. Very grateful to you. All right. Alex, plug your book one more time.
Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power, coming out March 18th. A lot of things that people do not know about, did not know about this campaign when it was going on. A lot of really fascinating tidbits. I can't wait to share more about it over the next 10 days.
Including here on Two-Way when we're having you back for a big book thing. Kristen, what way is Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, who you know well, most like Donald Trump?
Oh, geez. Well, I think they both have a unique, political talent of connecting with people. Right. And so if you look back at the governor's race in 2021, what the governor had done so well was connect with the voters. And, I think Bill Clinton is another example of a politician like that. Someone that when they're talking to you, you feel like you're the only person they're talking to. I think Trump is a master at that, once in a generation. But I think the governor is very, very good at that. That's why he did so well in that race and why he's such an effective communicator.
Now that you've revised your position on Gavin Newsom, who is more likely to someday be president, Gavin Newsom or Glenn Youngkin?
Oh, why would you ask questions like that? That's not nice.
All right. I withdraw the question. Love having you both on. So grateful to you. Please both come back regularly. And we like you as a pair, too. So consider copywriting Kristen and Alex or something more creative. Thank you both. All right. To review the bidding in 2 minutes, if you want to join on the Two-Way platform, not on YouTube, not on X, on the Two-Way platform, me and the great economic mind, David Bonson, to talk about tariffs, both the macro and also how they can affect you and your family, your business, whatever. Please join me in just 2 minutes, 7 Eastern time on Two-Way. If you haven't already, register at twoway.tv/TBG. Okay. So that's that. Then tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time, AM, we'll have Congressman Ro Khanna on the morning meeting with Dan Sean and myself to talk to him about his tweet from tonight and his view of where the Democrats stand in the wake of what happened on Tuesday night. Tomorrow night, be back on with this program. So we'll see you then. Then next week, do we have a graphic for this?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Next week on Tuesday night, I teased this morning. If you're in New York City next week, Tuesday night, we are going to be piloting and premiering our new show, Table 17, at the Olive Tree Cafe on McDougal Street in the heart of Greenwich Village. This is a brand new kind of program for Two-Way. We'll tell you more about what it's like next week, but the Olive Tree Cafe sits above the Comedy Cellar, the most iconic and famous comedy venue in the world. And we will be doing a show. It's going to have music and comedy and political talk all under one roof at Table 17. Michael Moynihan, my colleague here at Two Way, Noam Dorman, who owns both the restaurant and the Comedy Cellar, and a mystery guest or two will join us as well. So you'll be able to watch that program. We'll tell you more how to do that if you're not in New York. But if you are in New York City, go to our website, twoway.tv, if you want to be interested in purchasing one of the very few tickets you'll be able to purchase to be here to enjoy that in person. I promise you it will be fantastic if you come. So go ahead if you're in New York and join us then. All right. Thank you for watching tonight. Again, I'll see you in a moment on Two Way with David Bonson. And again, tomorrow morning, Sean Dan and Ro Khanna. Good night.